Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach and we're doing another Ecomi Omi VeVe video. Currently the price is 7.5, hold up, 3.4 on a low of 7.263 and a high of 7.884. So definitely stabilizing in the sevens. Now we just made a video talking about cores and Fortnite and stuff. I want to talk about this video that I've stumbled across here. Niall Ballantyne, sorry if I got your name wrong, friend, by the way, but I want to have a go through what they're saying here, and I want to see what their predictions are on price, on proof that you are early. Obviously, I agree, but it's always interesting to hear what others have to say about VeVe Ecomi stuff, and I haven't seen a lot of their videos before, so I wanted to give it a go, and I thought we would do it together. So with that said, let's jump into it, and of course, as usual, a link will be in the description to their channels where you can check everything out there. But yeah, I want to see if there's anything I can add to this, see what I think about it, etc, etc.
And just as a kind of general premise, the thought of being early to Omi, and it got me thinking, doing a bit of research, and just from a general kind of adoption curve, you can also look at crypto.
So I can hear the UK accent straight away.
Adoption curves, and this is a J curve, but you can see two different types of curves here, and they largely agree with one another that you have the innovators, early adopters, early majority, and then you have late majority and laggards. So we can see in the crypto adoption curve, the same kind of terminology used, same percentages has been used here, 16%, etc.
Oh, so, sorry, I just realized that my face cam is covering Niall here. That's my bad. 1 second. Let's fix that real quick. There we go. Let's just move it over here for now.
We kind of apply this to Ecomi Omi and VeVe. We can look at the price, because obviously we're all here to an extent financially. Of course, I think it started off that way, and now a lot of us are very much involved emotionally, sentimentally, which is definitely not the best way to be for an investment. But ultimately, we've grown attached to a company, and it is a great company in my opinion. And yeah, we're here hopefully to make a profit at the same time.
Yeah, there's a community here. There's definitely a community here, which I've noticed there are certain people in the community that I won't name names because I don't want to, like, you know, but I've seen there are certain people in the community who are obsessed with Ecomi and VeVe stuff. And I truly think it's not just because of the product, but it's because of the people that they're surrounding themselves with. And when I say that, it's not a bad thing either. It's awesome that there's a project that people are so bullish on, because of the reality is that there's a lot of fandoms going on here. You know, you have a lot of IPs happening, etc, etc. That's why I got into VeVe in the first place, because I was not interested in crypto NFTs, etc, until I got into VeVe. And a lot of that was down to Gavel Anderson, who I know as Vel, who was telling me about it well before, you know, well, probably like maybe February time. So yeah, no, there's a whole ass community going on. It's amazing.
If you've been dollar cost averaging like myself, you will have already made a profit on that, but that's not really the topic of conversation today. We're going to be looking at the kind of early adoption, how early we are to the Omi token, to VeVe, and to Ecomi in general. So we can see the prices here today. We're actually down 7.7%, but the general market, I believe, the altcoins are all kind of down to the same extent here. So if we take a look at the all-time chart for the Omi token, now this isn't really the best gauge, because, for example, if you're just looking at this point blank, you could say, right, over here was clearly the innovators, the early adopters around this area. Then it blew up, we see the early majority, and then it starts to tailor off and it falls, it crashes. So you can see that, or you could argue that, okay, innovators, early adopters, it peaked, that's when you have the majority of them. But this metric here is purely on kind of market cap and price history, rather than looking forward. And
absolutely,
it's just inaccurate because it's in the past, you can't use it for anything, and ultimately it means nothing towards the product itself.
This actually is really interesting, right? I love what they're saying here, because I was watching a video, this is going to be really bad, I can't remember how to say their name, but their name's Chamath Palahipatea, but I'm sorry, I've got their name wrong, I do apologize. They were on a podcast where they were talking with a bunch of other thought leaders. Clearly, it wasn't the crypto scene specifically, not so much the NFT scene, but they were looking at altcoins, right? And, you know, they were looking at like different sort of prices and, you know, the rankings and stuff. And Chamath made a really good point, which was simply that, you know, you can't look at these these altcoins as such with the view of I mean, obviously there's a certain level of looking at the price to see what's going on, but the reality is that all of these different altcoins have different purposes, right? And so what we're looking at here is one KPI of numbers of KPIs, right? we're looking at obviously right here the price, but how many downloads has VeVe had? This graph does not show how many downloads VeVe has. Absolutely not in any way, shape, or form, right? It doesn't also show the licenses that VeVe has in comparison to the competition, etc., etc. So the price itself definitely has some level of indication for part of the KPIs here, but it's definitely not the full story. And I think that's what Niall's saying.
As in the quality of VeVe, the Omi token, and things like that. There's so many more variables that go into deciding this product lifecycle, and ultimately, it's not the product lifecycle because we're still in the midst of that lifecycle.
Absolutely.
So if we go back to this and remind ourselves of it, we can see the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority.
We got some ads. Let's go. Let's go. Support any coming YouTubers out here. That's what we love to see.
And what I want to get into here, I do have a presentation with all the kind of metrics, which we can just look at quickly here. Is the first thing really is, what do you consider mass adoption? So this is what we were talking about in the beginning when we said, what about Ecomi's kind of internal goals and ideas for the company? Of course, any business when they're starting out, they want to have goals of some kind of adoption or some kind of sales, revenue kind of goals and things like that. So, or whether it be market share, whatever it may be, there's always internal goals or internal measurements that they're aiming for. And for the very least, from when you're doing your own Ecomi research, you'll know that it is targeted to the mass market. And when you say mass market, how do you quantify mass market? So this is what we're looking at here. What do you consider mass adoption? And we can add some more context to mass adoption in the sense of mass adoption within a crypto community, within the NFT space, within the crypto and NFT space, should I say. And then you could actually consider true mass adoption of like the globe, like the general public. Now, one caveat to that is, of course, in no way, shape or form can you capture 100% of a market, because even in the crypto space, if you're to say we are mass adopted in the crypto space, you'll never be 100% adopted by any market. It's not like every single person that owns a cryptocurrency will then own Omi as well. It just means more so that you're kind of on the radar and there's awareness in the general wider community of Omi. That's, or crypto, should I say. That's kind of how I would describe mass adoption to an extent of that, where it's, of course, not 100% of the market is going to own it, but at the same time, they may well be aware of it. And I think that kind of works for me. That's the kind of definition I've got so far. And you can let me know in the comment section what you agree with, what you don't agree with.
Okay, I'll let you know what I agree with, what I don't agree with. I like what you're saying a lot there. I think it's very nuanced, right? I think one thing as someone, I think in a way, this is a benefit of not being a long-time crypto investor, is I'm able to see it past or differently, I guess, to looking at the graphs, the numbers, as a lot of people do. I'm noticing a lot of price predictions based on X number, X number of X number of X number, looking at multiplying factors of price, per time, etc., etc. And all of that makes sense, right? All of that is can be very helpful as far as measuring this. But it definitely doesn't measure all the variables, as essentially Niall's been saying here, right? And so when I think about this, I think I very much level and I'm parallel, have a similar way of thinking to Gary V here, where when Gary V is asked on news shows, right, about, wow, we're already 10 minutes in. This might be a couple of videos, who knows? Either way, though, Gary talks a little bit about when he's asked about, okay, what's the next crypto to invest in? He says he doesn't know. And I think part of the reason is he does obviously know to a certain extent. He has an idea of what's going on, but that's just from being in the scene. But I think more to the point is that this is not about charts necessarily. This is about consumer demand. Supply and demand mainly, right? And so when we look at what the mass market is, to me, I think that the mass market, at the moment at least, is entertainment. And entertainment is already, therefore, then separated into different pillars. When you think about this, hold on. There you go. When you think about this, we have different pillars of entertainment. We have music, that's one pillar. Then we have film, that's another pillar. Then we have video games, and that's another pillar. Then we have sport, and that's another pillar. And then what's interesting is through technology, a lot of these different pillars are starting to merge. So now you're starting to see, for example, music concerts take place in Fortnite. Music concerts take place in Roblox. You're starting to see films taking place in Fortnite as well. And I'm using Fortnite and Roblox because they're by far the best examples to use for metaverse style things. But all of these different things, you're seeing for the longest time, in fact, sports has been made into video games. NBA 2K 18, 19, 20, 21, FIFA, PES, etc., etc., etc. And so when you think about all of these different entertainment mediums that VeVe have said that they want to get into, already you're looking at really global and mass adoption. The main thing here though is that this isn't about a crypto project necessarily. Yes, of course, it inherently has crypto tied to it, but the reality is that the product is what people are going for. And the reality as well is that whenever VeVe work with Marvel, DC, etc., they never ever stress the crypto end, because the crypto end will likely be the back end of what some people are interested in. As with the internet, some people are interested in, what's happening as far as the different technologies behind the HTML5 and, the different things going on with YouTube. But most people are simply there for the product and to be able to use the product without having to worry about anything else. And so if, all the stuff like, once the MTL sorted out, etc., once everything is very easy and people can essentially buy NFTs in the same way that people buy skins in Fortnite with V-Bucks, without worrying about investing in Omi, which is the crypto side of things, then that is what takes VeVe to the next level. And VeVe is already doing that because they're already focusing on making the user experience. Yes, of course, there are some issues, a lot of issues, but they're generally focusing on making the user experience as non-crypto heavy as possible. That said, I don't want to completely take away from Niall's video, so let's continue.
There'll be a lot to talk about in the comment section, but we can see here the current kind of landscape of Ecomi, VeVe and Omi, and it's going to be a bit of a tongue twister, I have to say that every time, but we see 65k holders. Now, there's a bit of a issue here. If you go on GoChain Explorer, which allows you to see the blockchain transactions on the GoChain, you can see here we have 145,000, but that is really not accurate at all. If you go down here, we can see we've changed the pages to the items to 100 per page. If you were to go to the last page, for example, or even any of these, we will see that they're pretty much dead wallets, or like virtually nothing in the wallets. So this is a really inaccurate number here. Sure. And in reality, we are closer to that 65k holders. And at the end of the day, you'd also want to kind of consider that even that 65,000 holder could have like 5 tokens in it, and what really, in the grand scheme of things, the contribution to the likes of trading volume, what effect does that really have? So you really do have to take all of these numbers with a kind of pinch of salt, because ultimately objective numbers without context mean nothing. So pretty much everything in the video then needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, and ultimately these are the metrics we're using, but you kind of need to give it some leeway on either side. And if we look at the downloads now, the issue with this, the accounts, the user base, the downloads, we don't have concrete numbers, we don't have anywhere we can go to get live updates, so we have to... The
important thing when it comes, sorry to interrupt, but at the same time, that's the point of reacting as well and sort of giving thoughts and stuff. I think what's also important, right, is that, and again, I'm so grateful in a way that I've learned what I've learned through gaming as far as the business of gaming. And to be fair, just software in general, I guess, is that it's about monthly actives, right? That's what's really important, in my opinion, is MAU. And that's why generally when games come out, if a publisher is really happy and wants to get really good press out of their success in gaming, they'll publish a very impressive monthly active user account if they have that. So for example, when Apex released, within about a month, I think there was 100 million players. Of course they were to boast about that. In the first week, I think there were 10 million players. So they were boasting about that. And when I say boasting, I mean essentially just letting everyone know, right? And of course, that's awesome for investors, that's awesome for EA, etc. The point here being is that downloads aren't really a big thing. It's about the active users and the consistent active users.
From a rough estimate of 700,000 downloads, within that kind of ballpark figure, we could estimate the number of accounts, and then individual users, active users. There's a lot of different metrics within that we just don't know the answer to, and it's all kind of a guessing game. It is all speculation at the end of the day. So that is where the limitations of this kind of model and this whole video really go. But if we continue through this, and I'll just jump in this quickly because we can jump in and out of the PowerPoint, but if we go through here, we can see the key things to consider when we're looking at where we are in the kind of life cycle or the adoption cycle of Ecomi Omi VeVe. We first need to consider the adoption metrics. So we're talking about their accounts versus users. So accounts is obviously a bit misconstrued because people can have multiple accounts. We've seen it recently, especially with the kind of botting situation. A lot of people with emulators have like 5, 6, 7 plus accounts open on their computers and things like that. So it's really hard to say accounts. Users would be a more accurate metric, but then we don't have access to that information. So they're the two kind of gauges for VeVe in my opinion. And then we can look at the Omi token for the adoption of Omi. And I would say, in my opinion, the number of holders, number of token holders for Omi is probably the best gauge, the best kind of accurate depiction of the adoption of the token. I think that's fair to say. You could argue maybe market cap, but again, that is subjective, as we've seen earlier, that market cap can peak and kind of fall at the same time. So it doesn't really say much about the product, doesn't give context. So I think the number of token holders is a good metric for this. And if we actually jump out of here quickly, we've said that this is more accurately around 65,000. If we jump to a coin like Shiba Inu, which has barely been like, this rose to prominence, real prominence, within like a year or so. Now, of course, this is a totally different type of token. It's not a utility token, it's a meme coin, if you want to call it that. And it has 711,522 token holders. So I think that's fair to say that has a wide adoption within the crypto space. And then if we jump on and see the market cap for Shiba Inu, we can see down here, number 15, $12.2 billion market cap, which is just insane. So I think it's fair to say within the crypto sphere, at the very least, this has been mass adopted. Everyone's aware of it, and that is my kind of depiction of mass adoption in my opinion. And we can see the metrics for that. 12 point.
Yeah, for me, I this is gonna sound weird. I actually don't really mind or care what is mass adopted in crypto. That might be because I'm not far enough into the rabbit hole. Even though I do actually have another crypto channel that I haven't really mentioned. Eventually I will, but I learn best by doing. So I make channels about things that I don't know about necessarily, and then like spend a stupid amount of time on that one channel to the point where I know exactly what's happening in the general space. But I'm not too honestly that interested in like what's happening, like Shiba Inu or whatever. I don't really care personally. Some of you will really care, and some of you will be checking the price every day or whatever, and you do you. But I'm more interested in the consumer demand part of VeVe, which will in turn therefore turn the cogs of Omi.
An awareness standpoint, where we could, or where we need to be really, to be in the same category. So a 10x roughly in the token holders, a little bit more than that, and then a 10x in the market cap. And then of course we have the VeVe app, which is totally kind of incomparable, separate. There's no real metric to measure it against, because there's nothing quite like it. So for me, if we're just considering the Ecomi Omi adoption, we can see around a 10x for the market cap, 10x plus for the token holders, which would be a general adoption of just the crypto community in my opinion. But if we just jump back in here to the PowerPoint, we can see on the VeVe adoption. So if we were to say, and this is where things get speculatory, because what is your opinion?
Oh, okay. Okay. Different types of ads. Okay.
Of adoption. Now, if we said here 10 million users on VeVe, is that 10 million accounts, 10 million active users, 10 million whatever? But if we just take the 10 million figure here, we can see that the innovators kind of section of the adoption curve is around 250,000 users, and then the early adopters, which will be upwards of around 1.6 million. If you add the 250k with the 1.35, that would be 1.6 million. So we are anywhere between, if we're basing it off the current figures here, the 700k downloads, which we believe to be true. We can see here that we are in between the early adopter, or the innovators, to the early adopter stage. Now, of course, a lot of us were there at that innovator stage, like way before there was even 100,000 users and things. So let's give you an idea roughly based on.
Sure, I'm interested to see if now speaks about, and maybe they don't, but I'm hoping that we might be able to see something outside of crypto, but potentially not. Maybe he's only focusing on the price crypto-wise. I also don't want to make this video too long, because it's already coming up to 20 minutes. But I wanted to give my own way of looking at this, and of course make sure to look at what Niall is saying, because they're bringing up some really good points, and they're definitely heavier into the crypto space than I am. This to me comes down to more about consumer demand, right? Because the Omi utility will come through people using it, and that is essentially a business model, right? As far as not even crypto, that's a case of people wanting to buy a product or a service. Now, when you go into the VeVerse, when you have certain NFTs, etc., that is essentially a business that doesn't necessarily have to tie to crypto, even though in this case it very much does, and it does well, of course. Well, at least it will do once obviously we have Omi to fiat and the MTL, all that stuff that should hopefully be not long now at all. What I'm really interested to see is when this is adopted by the general different communities that VeVe wants to attack. We're talking art enthusiasts, we're talking designers, we're talking, you know, just like car enthusiasts, even like automobile enthusiasts, gaming enthusiasts, and you have all these different IPs. I genuinely, when we look at Fortnite, for example, right, which has roughly 250 million players, when we look at Twitter, which has a similar amount of users, honestly, there are literally hundreds of millions of people on these different websites. Crunchyroll has 150 million. There is over 100 million, in my opinion, people who will want to use this, well past just the crypto market, which of course itself will be a huge market, and it already is a huge market and is continuously being adopted, especially with everything happening with the fiat money system, etc. But that's stuff that I don't really go into too much, especially because it's something that I'm still really learning. Right now, what I'm excited about is the product, and the fact is that currently the product is so early in. It's so early in, which is also a bit scary because of how hard it is to get a drop. But either way, I think, considering that we're less than 1 million people in, and considering that we have over 100 million worth of potential customers, right? We're less than 1%. Like we're seeing here, innovators is 2.5%. We're less than 1% into this. That's what I gotta say. That's what I want to say, especially because it's now a 21-minute video, and that's just going to take ages to upload, export, etc. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to subscribe to Niall. I would really appreciate it, especially after I've looked at their video for like 15 minutes. It only makes sense for you to subscribe to them as well, and do, you know, have a look at what they're posting, because every Ecomi YouTuber is bringing a lot to the space, and it's awesome to see. That being said, video's long enough. If this video was interesting or helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, a like is always much appreciated. And if you would like to be happening in this topic every single day, more time today, this is my channel, and I give everything on every single day. So if you want to be happening, hit that subscribe and keep the notifications on. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next VeVe video.